What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Blazers Uprise Postgame Show, presented by Bet Online. The Blazers tonight lose on the sixth game of a road trip in Mile High against the Denver Nuggets, 120-107. They had a 6-point lead after the first half, after they came back from a 13-point deficit, and then they got outscored 36-15 in the third quarter. So, I have a chat poll. You guys get to decide how we approach this post-game show tonight, because there's a bunch of different ways we could go with this one. So while you guys answer that, let me just thank our sponsor for today once again, Bet Online. You can use promo code BELIEVE to receive 50% rewards over on Bet Online. The Nuggets were only a 4.5-point favorite, and since so many of you guys knew this was coming, you could have maybe cashed in and received 50% rewards by using that promo code BELIEVE. But there's a bunch of fun other stuff if you want to enjoy Christmas basketball. There's 5 Christmas games. There's a bunch of football games coming up tomorrow. So if you've been stuck in the house because Portland is iced in and you want some fun, check out Bet Online and use that promo code BELIEVE. Eric, hi, how's it going?
Oh, just great. Got a bunch of chicken littles.
Chicken littles. Yeah, so
Sky is falling.
Okay. Yeah, so I did a chat poll, all right, because I always love reading chat before a stream even starts. It's always fun to see. And I asked you guys, what should we do this post-game show? How should we approach this thing? The options were respond to ridiculous chat comments, talk about the team, a little bit of both, or forget basketball exists entirely. We got 39% saying a little bit of both, 22% saying talk about the team, 22% saying forget basketball even exists, and 17% wants us to only focus on chat comments. So we're not going to only focus on chat comments in this stream, but we definitely could, because the sky is falling for half of the Blazers fandom out there, and this team is destined to only win 20 games on the season, and the season's already over, and we already know that because of 1 or 2 bad games that certain players suck and quote-unquote aren't him, and yeah, that's just what the fan base is feeling right now, I guess. So, yeah, we'll talk some about that, and we'll get into this post-game show, our final post-game show before Christmas. It should be a festive one, Eric.
Yeah. Well, the good news is the Blazers only have one game, and it's against the worst team in the East over the next week. So, and then they play a week from tonight, the Steph Curry-less Warriors. So they have, a lot of time to figure it out. 6 off days in the next week. So I'm sure they'll get Christmas off and not work on anything then. But, yeah, they do have time to work on stuff, I guess, is the positive.
Yeah. I mean, the problems with this team come down to this. The bench sucks. The bench is absolutely awful. Nobody coming off the bench should be playing in the playoffs for a playoff team. I think that's just the truth. This bench sucks. Got outplayed by a Denver bench, which isn't that good without Jokic on the floor. We've seen this bench get outscored time and time again. I don't want Drew Eubanks playing in the playoffs. I don't want Justice Winslow playing in the playoffs. I don't want Trendon Watford playing in the playoffs. At this point, Sharp is a nice developmental piece long term, but I don't think I want him playing in the playoffs this year. I don't want Keon playing in it. I don't want anybody off the bench playing in the playoffs this year. The only bench player that I want playing in the playoffs is Gary Payton II, because we've seen him play in the playoffs and have an impact on winning. Everybody else on this bench is not a guy that you can trust to help you consistently win basketball games at the highest level. That's number 1. Number 2, Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons are in a slump. Anthony Simons was 6 for 22 today, 1 for 10, maybe his worst shooting game of the entire season. But Jeremy Grant, he was 7 for 13, 3 for 6. So he shot a little bit better than I thought. He had 20.7 rebounds, had that and 1 3. But over his past 10 games, been shooting 34% from 3. Just hasn't been the same caliber of 3-point shooter. In this game, when he went strong and shot threes, he was fine, but settled for some poor mid-range shots, in my opinion. And this team has gotten caught a little bit doing that. Dame was great. Josh Hart was great. Yusuf Nurkic was great. Nurkic kind of struggled in the second half, ran into foul trouble, but against Nikola Jokic, what can you expect? In the first half, Nurkic was absolutely phenomenal, I thought, on both ends of the floor. Was 4 for 6 first half, had a couple and 1 finishes, and played the best defense out of anybody on the entire roster in that first half. So, yeah, but when you have a mixed bag like that and Anthony Simons in a slump, it's going to be hard to beat Denver, especially when you can't play a lick of defense.
Yeah, for sure. Just too many forced shots. Once again, Denver ramps up their pressure on defense in the second half. They look locked in, and we're flying around out there. And or the Blazers really didn't have any sort of counter or attacking mindset like they did in the first half. That's what got them back after they got down by 13 in the first half. They started pushing the ball, even on made baskets. They were sending someone down the court and throwing it ahead to them, and they were going right to the basket. And a lot of times it resulted in dunks or easy lay-ins. And there was zero of that in the second half. We didn't push the ball at all. We slowed the ball down, got caught in the half-court sets, which they were putting all the pressure on Damon, and that third quarter was just freaking ugly, man.
Yeah, to beat Denver in Denver, you got to be able to execute in the half court, though, and the Blazers didn't do that. Obviously, in altitude, it's hard to get out and run all game long. The Blazers had some good stretches where they did run, and I think that's, in any game, when they've gone on runs is because they've gotten out in transition. But that starts with stops, and the problem is this team can't consistently get stops, and therefore it can't get out and run as much as maybe they'd like to. So everything kind of starts on the defensive end for this team right now, and this team is just absolutely terrible defensively. It'll be nice to have Gary Payton II supposedly back a couple days from now, day after Christmas is the rumor, and he'll help out our defense because everybody else defensively off the bench just is not good enough. And they're not good enough offensively either. Like Drew Eubanks, I can't with Drew Eubanks, man. Keon's good defensively. Keon might be our best bench player right now, which is kind of sad because Trendon Watford hasn't been getting it done defensively. He had a wide open three. Eric, we've talked about him as a non-shooter, and maybe he can figure out his three-point shot. He had a wide open three in this game all day to think about it and bricked it off the backboard and didn't hit rim. So that was pretty sad. Sharp is still learning the game. And Sharp's been better lately, but plus minus doesn't bear it out if you care about that sort of stuff. So yeah, this bench is frustrating. It's frustrating when we hang with starters or we come back because of a deficit the bench gave up, and it's just not enough. I mean, it would be nice to be able to put in a bench where it's like, okay, our starters didn't necessarily play the best. Well, our bench can get the job done and outplay their bench. The problem is the Blazers honestly might have the worst bench in the league right now.
Yeah, and this is where I don't like using the excuse, well, we weren't going to contend this year anyway. Cronin said it was going to take time, right? But it was also Cronin's decision. Pretty much all these guys, Keon, Justice, Eubanks, were all Cronin acquisitions. Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, he couldn't have imagined that Gary Payton would still be out, I guess. But even with Payton, there's not much on that bench right now. So I don't really want to hear the excuse, like, what did you expect out of this team? Because the starting lineup's looking great if you would have just made a few better moves for the bench. And like, what did we hear? These are all Chauncey's guys, right? They all play the way Chauncey wants them to play. Well, like, that's certainly not showing on the basketball court lately. So shore up the bench, and the longer this goes without shoring it up, I mean, they can hope that Gary Payton II is the difference all they want, but until they get someone out there that can make teams pay for pressuring Dame or Ant, especially when only one of them is in the game, it's going to be a long season.
Yep, absolutely. Shout out Mr. Pine, member for 7 months, says pain, just pain. Absolutely. Shout out Bob and Weave for becoming an all-star level member. Thank you to both of you for your channel memberships. And then shout out Hyper Prime with the $5 donation, says, talk about backup bigs we can trade or get to replace Eubanks. This team is so frustrating when the starters sit and ruin chances of us winning. Thank you, Hyper Prime, for that. I do want to talk about some trade stuff, but not yet, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we'll wait until later on in the show to talk about, what the Blazers can do to fix up this bench lineup. But now's the time where we kind of get into just the whole sky is falling thing with this freaking fan base. I wish I could come on here on stream and just, and I have, but there's a lot of times where I'm about to hit go live. I have the stream uploaded, people are already in chat, and I'm like really frustrated, and I'm ready to go off, I'm ready to rant, and then I read some of the comments that are left in chat, and I'm just like, oh my god, that is so ridiculously negative and so far out there, and it brings me back to reality, and then I start off streams like the way I started off this one, because that's exactly what happened. I was very frustrated after this loss, and then I read some of the stuff in chat that was just absolutely, just absolutely ridiculous, man. And, yeah, let's talk about it. So, what fans used to do to CJ is now going to be done to Anthony Simons. That much is obvious. They're going to wait for him to have one bad game. Then whenever he has a bad game, or if he has a shooting slump that spans 2 or 3 games, then they're going to take that as proof that they were right, that Anthony Simons sucks. Anthony Simons is not allowed to go on a shooting slump. He's not allowed to have a bad game. Otherwise, he is automatically CJ 2.0, and he sucks. That's what a lot of these fans are saying, and then you got fans in this chat that says, they're talking about how they're a Blazer fan, and, instead of being mad about this game, they're going to gloat because Anthony Simons is not him. They're going to brag about how they were right, that Anthony Simons is not good, and he's CJ 2.0. Doesn't really sound like much of a Blazer fan to me, but no, I hate it. I hate it because whenever people have a negative narrative towards a certain player, the moment they struggle, it doesn't matter if they were great 5 games ago, 4 games ago, it doesn't matter if on the season they've been great, which Anthony Simons has been great this season. The moment they start struggling, it's proof, and they suck, and it's never going to work. And it's what all these fans were saying after the first 3 games when Anthony had a 3-game shooting slump to start the season. And then in Game 4, he broke out and dominated this Denver Nuggets team. It's the one win we have against Denver. We won by 25 because Ant had like a 22-point third quarter, broke out of his slump. Ant recently had a 45-point game in Utah. Ant's been phenomenal this season. But even good players are going to have bad games. I mean, shoot, look at what Damian Lillard did last game. Dame was terrible last game. And Ant has the privilege of playing with this crappy bench unit that we've talked about, where he has to try and carry them offensively. He doesn't have good spacing. He doesn't have anybody else that can consistently create off the dribble. And he's just stuck in a screwed situation with a bench lineup that is absolutely putrid. So, the Anthony Simons hate after this game, I thought was absolutely ridiculous. It's funny because there was another comment in chat saying that, talking about Anthony can't play in the playoffs, or he's not going to be good in the playoffs because this was playoff defense played by Denver, and look at what Ant did against it, right? But it's always funny how people just ignore the fact that he went off against this Denver Nuggets team. Same exact team in the first game. But you know what's funny, Eric, is because he went off, that means their defense wasn't that good. It wasn't playoff level defense, and that's why he went off. But tonight, you look at how much he struggled, that's because it was playoff defense. They completely ignore how Ant playing good will make their defense look worse, and Ant struggling and missing some shots will make their defense look better. There's obviously a direct correlation there, but it's just funny because if Ant plays well, apparently, then it's not good defense. But if he struggles, then it's good defense, and it's proof that he can't play well against good defense, supposedly, according to a couple people in chat. So that's what I talk about. That's what I mean when I talk about people getting attached to a certain narrative, and they will take a bad game as proof for that narrative, and then they'll ignore the good game. And it's just ridiculous, and it's just stupid. Some of y'all need to calm down and stop being so emotional. And that's coming from me. That's coming from me. You guys, there's too many people that are being completely illogical.
Yeah, and I mean, Denver's a good team. I don't understand what part of he's 23 years old. This is his first year playing with Dame as a starter. 30 games into the season, even going into next season, right? There's still a lot of room for him to improve as a player. We've seen how much he's improved from his 3rd season to his 4th season to now. There's still possibility of him taking a jump even further. I don't understand why people think it's a finished product and he's just destined to be some loser player or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So Anyway, I'm just kind of reading chat as well. I thought that was ridiculous. There's another comment talking about how like bad Nurk was in this game. I thought Nurk was great. He kind of struggled in the second half, but he was dealing with foul trouble going against the 2-time MVP. Like Nurkic has actually stayed out of foul trouble this year. He gets in foul trouble having to guard Jokic while the rest of our defense is just a complete mess and nobody knows what to do. Nobody knows where to double from. Nobody knows how to rotate when the double comes. Nobody knows anything defensively. And he has to go up against Nikola Jokic, who's won MVP. Did I mention that, Eric? Twice in a row, 2 years in a row, back-to-back defending MVP winner. Yeah, so, those guys are hard to guard, and Nurkic got put in foul trouble, and yeah, sure, in a moving screen, he should have been set on, like, that was kind of his fault. There's a couple you could criticize him for sure, but still, in the first half, Nurkic was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal defensively. Not just, like, kind of slowing down Jokic, but also helping on drives, making plays. He had 2 blocks and a steal in this game, making the right pass, rebounding. He finished in the first half, had 2 and 1 finishes. One, he was going to dunk. He got fouled, so he couldn't dunk, and he double clutched and finished it. Isn't that what fans wanted? For him to go in and dunk and then finish through contact. Also, hit the 3 he shot in the first half. Had to shoot 1 against a shot clock buzzer in the second half. That was off. But, yeah, I don't really understand going off against Nurkic. Yeah, he made a couple mistakes in this game, but he did a lot of good. He was probably our best defender tonight outside of his fouls. And then he I don't know, he didn't have a great game overall. First half, I thought he was really good, though. And I don't understand people that come into chat blaming him for anything.
Yeah, thought he was absolutely phenomenal in the first half. Second half was rough. So yeah, two different games from him, I guess. But it's tough, man. I mean, he picks up silly fouls, but I mean, Denver's pretty much the only team this happens with. And like you said, it's a problem because you have to be perfect and not do anything. Like Jokic foul baits a lot. We saw that in this game. It's just tough to stay down. So that when you commit your once a game, setting this illegal screen, and then I mean, you can say it was silly to pick up that foul to go charging in there, but Jokic flopped on that last foul where he fouled out. Anyway,
these refs were atrocious, dude.
It's tough, but I mean, he's got to be smarter in those situations when he gets 4 or 5 fouls. But Denver's also, they're playing up the screens. They know that if they get Nurkic out of the game, that they pretty much win at that point. So they're going to accentuate the contact when he's around as well. So it definitely has to be smarter. I think he has done a way, way, way better job of that this year compared to the playoff series against Denver, where he would commit stupid fouls. And I think he's learned from that.
Yeah, he's not really committing frustration fouls like he has in the past.
Right. But I thought he played about as good as you could have played in the first half defensively on Jokic. And that was some of the more impressive defense I've seen. He has a play where he blocks his shot, and then Jokic gets it back and hits this rainbow. It goes 100 feet in the air, and Jokic is so good at that. And it's there's not a defender in the world that can stop Jokic's shot when he arcs it that high. And I mean, you just throw your hands up to that, but that wasn't bad defense or anything like that.
Yeah, sometimes you can play great defense, and it doesn't guarantee that the other player won't make the shot. Mm-hmm. You can make shots against great defense, and yeah, it's if he, yeah, I just people correlate defense too much with whether or not a shot goes in my opinion. Go ahead.
Well, and then his 4th foul, so he gets absolutely blindsided by a back screen by the guard. Keon doesn't even communicate the screen. He gets blown up. And then Keon just leaves Jokic on ball. So Nurkic has to hustle to recover and unfortunately fouls him. But, I guess you got to be smarter and just let Jokic score, I guess, and not even contest it. But then everyone would be saying that Nurk's lazy and gave up on the play, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what is he supposed to do there? The Keon completely left him out to dry on that play, and he gets his fourth foul, has to come out, and then he comes back in and gets those two silly ones. But yeah, it's like it's just unfortunate. But like Keon's got to stay in front of Jokic if he misses the communication on the screen. He's got to at least not give Jokic a straight line drive to the hoop. So I don't know what he's supposed to do. And that several of his fouls I don't remember all of them in the first half, but I believe one or two were the same way, where someone didn't switch properly or didn't help him, and he had to try to contest a shot that was unguarded. And yeah.
Yeah. No, Nurkic was fine tonight. Anyone blaming Nurkic just wants to blame Nurkic, in my opinion. That's how I see it. That's what it felt like at the start of this, because I don't really know how you criticize him. There's a comment about somebody said Eubanks played Jokic well. I absolutely disagree with that, and I think Chauncey disagrees with that, because near the end of that game, he wouldn't even put Eubanks on Jokic. He took Eubanks off of Jokic and put Jeremy Grant on him.
He had I'd say he had 3 or 4 good possessions on Jokic, and then the rest were pretty bad. See, here's the problem. So I was watching this game. When you're guarding Jokic, you can't go guard someone else in transition. Like, of course, you have to stop ball if you don't have defenders down. But Eubanks would just run down the court and go guard like Bruce Brown in the corner, and not even go to Jokic. And there was guys there. It's just exactly what I was showing in the breakdowns 2 games ago. It's like he doesn't have the awareness to know I'm guarding Jokic. I can't go. And then all of a sudden, like, Keon's trying to guard him in the post because Eubanks is nowhere to be found, because he went and grabbed someone off ball on transition that he didn't even need to be at. And then all of a sudden they get an easy basket and stuff like that. Like, little things like that, people don't notice much, but it happens way too much, man.
He's not a smart defensive player.
And I'm not trying to pick on him or whatever, but like, there was a fast break where like Keon was actually going to the guard once again, and Eubanks just jumps out on him and leaves Jokic, and now they don't end up passing it to him. He passed to Bones, I think, and they hit a 3. But if they missed that shot, there was no one to box out Jokic underneath. He would have easily gotten the rebound. It's just like stuff like that just drives me freaking crazy. There was a time where Jeremy Grant was locking up Jokic, and Eubanks was guarding Aaron Gordon under the hoop. And for no reason, he just takes like 3 steps, doesn't even double team. He just moves to where he's not guarding Gordon anymore, and he's not trapping Jokic. And Jokic just throws over the top to him to Gordon for a wide open dunk. It's like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, you can say he's the backup center, we can't do this, but there's no way we can get away with having a good defense when our backup center is costing us like 10 to 15 plays a game. Like, it's just really tough. And he makes 3 or 4 good plays, and he looks good, but the awareness, man, on defense is just really bad, and it's really frustrating. And it's not just him too. Like, in the first half, there was Josh Hart 3 times, 4 more times in the second half, Ant 3 times in the first half, a couple more times in the second half, just fell asleep off ball, guy cuts. Jokic is going to freaking kill that every time. It doesn't matter what you do on defense. If you're falling asleep off ball on those cuts by Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. and stuff, like, it's game over, man. Like you cannot do that, and we just fell asleep and lost focus way too many times.
Yeah. I mean, this team is just not smart enough defensively. Yeah. I don't know. I had a couple things I wanted to say, but I forgot. So, but Eubanks is frustrating me, man. Eubanks is just not smart enough defensively, and this is how you can kind of tell. How many times do we see teammates getting on Drew Eubanks? Did you watch the Trail episode earlier today?
I have not seen it yet.
There was a play. There was a.
Actually, I take it back. I watched like 5 minutes of it.
Did you see the clip where one of the assistant coaches was telling Jeremy Grant to tell Drew Eubanks not to try and block everything because he was ending up out of position?
I didn't see that.
There's a clip of an assistant coach telling Jeremy Grant to tell Drew to stop trying to block everything because he ends up out of position too much. It was insane. And then we saw Hart get mad at him a couple games ago. We saw Dame get mad at him, get after him today. He's an there's some plays where he doesn't play with good energy whatsoever. But there are plays where he does play with good energy and he's able to have a good defensive play or whatnot. But his defensive IQ is terrible. It's terrible. Like, honestly, in my opinion, it might be Enes Kanter bad. He's a better defender than Enes Kanter because he's much more athletic and much lengthier and much more mobile, so he obviously is better defender. Kanter was kind of limited due to just not good IQ and due to his physical limitations. Didn't have the longest arms, didn't get off the ground at all, that sort of thing. But Eubanks, man, he's not a smart defensive player whatsoever. And people can argue with me on that. Sure, fine. You know, it's debatable, but he's not a good backup center. He can finish. That's it. He's not a good defensive player. He's not smart. We need to upgrade that spot. Like, the bench sucks. How many times do we see him catch the ball on a roll, stop short, and just, like, freeze with the ball in the middle of the paint and not know what to do and not see anybody who's open and just, like, what do I do? Guard, Dame? Oh, no, Ant's out here with me. Where's Dame's not on the floor. Pass it back out to Ant, and then Ant has to take a heroic shot and he misses, and then everybody's blaming Ant. We saw that, like, 3 or 4 times today. Maybe 2 or 3 times. We saw that too much today. We've seen that too much with him. Those types of possessions are frustrating because what's Ant supposed to do? He has to bail out this crappy bench offense. But yeah, I'm just not a Eubanks fan. We need to upgrade it. People say he's okay backup center. Well, if you're trying to win, you need better than okay. But I don't even think he's okay. The starters fell asleep off ball to start this game, as you said, but they got better, I thought. There was still that third quarter, they struggled. It was like the start of the first and the third. But when they got subbed back in the second, they were playing much better defense, better off the ball. There was some good moments off the ball. It wasn't just all bad there from the starters. It was a mixed bag, but they do have to be more consistent and not fall asleep as much. Josh Hart, I'm starting to notice, falls asleep more than is acceptable off the ball. And Nas in the past has been somebody like that as well. So just too many guys that aren't locked in off the ball, and then we don't really have on-ball stoppers, so it's just tough, especially against a Denver team that plays through Jokic, moves the ball well, will cut well. They can pick you apart if you're not locked in off the ball. So GP2 will help with that for sure, but I think you need another good defensive player, whether it's on or off the ball at this point, and you need bench scoring / bench shooting. Because I know we're the top 3-point shooting team in the league, but that's basically because of our starters, Eric. It's because of our starters. The bench does not have enough shooting on it. The bench is rough, spacing wise. It would be one thing if they had guys that could create a Jordan Clarkson type off the bench. That at least when Ant's playing with them, okay, Ant doesn't have to create everything against a loaded defense. But yeah, I mean, basically, I come away from this game like, okay, the defense isn't all the way there with the starters for sure. With the bench, it sucks, and the bench in general is just awful. You got to upgrade it. So that's I don't really know. Everything falls back to that for me, is that we need better players coming off our bench because the game feels completely different. We feel like a competitive team when the starters are in. Even when, there's stretches we struggle, but there's stretches we play well. We feel like a competitive team when the starters are in. When the starters aren't in, when the bench is in, we feel like a tanking team.
Yep. And John F. in chat, can we not do the whole body reading expert thing in chat today again? Can we just stop at that? I mean, that's so dumb.
Who was it this time who didn't have good body language? Supposedly?
Dame and Nurk now hate each other. They're not buddy anymore.
What?
Yeah.
Bro,
Take this from someone who's been around the organization for 50 years.
Okay, all right, man. Okay. Anyway.
And then also, the person who says, so what, we're only allowed to criticize players that Tori and Eric say people get frustrated and just vent. No, no one's saying anything about you can't criticize or
putting words into our mouths, man.
Have all the bad takes you want in chat. Have at it. I don't care. Say, like, put a million, like, Dame's the worst player in the league and we need to trade him. Say that if you want, but it's dumb. Like, that doesn't mean we can't respond to it and say it's dumb. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of people in here that I think give some extremely questionable takes at best, and they're still in here, aren't they? So they're obviously allowed to do that. We don't have a rule against that. We have a rule against spamming, so maybe don't say it a million times like Eric said. Eric's trying to get you to break the rules, but yeah. So no spam, but we're going to respond to takes. Like, you guys are coming in here giving you our takes, or giving you your takes. We're sitting here giving you our takes. You're giving your takes on our takes, and we'll give our takes on your takes. Cool, it's a conversation. Like, I don't know why people sit here and say, oh, so we're not allowed to state our opinion? Where did you hear that, man? Just listen to what's being said. We don't...
Well,
I don't get it.
And that's the thing. Like, the person who said, oh, this proves that Ant can't handle the playoffs or whatever. It's like, he's never had this role in the playoffs. So say what you want, but that's, like, unprovable, and people are trying to sound like it's a fact because of this game, the 33rd game of the season. He went 1 for 10. That means he is doomed as a 23-year-old in his first year starting, that he just cannot ever be good in the playoffs, so we need to get rid of him. Like, that kind of stuff isn't... It's just dumb because, like, what's the point of saying that? There's no way to, like, prove that. It's not about, like, what's happening on the floor or basketball and stuff like that. It's just, it's funny. It's, yeah.
Yeah, it's just A, bad take. B, how could I even argue that? Because it's just not based in any sort of reality or logic. It's just completely out there. So you can have your takes that are completely out there. That's fine, but we don't have to sit here and agree with everything you say.
And like Chris says in chat, it's fine to have your take. That doesn't mean we can't criticize it. Like, that doesn't mean you're not allowed to have that take. That's never what we're saying. Like, have as many bad takes as you want. We're
in a stretch of post-game shows where we're, like, communicating with chat more than we have all season. But I'm trying to get people to take a step back and breathe. Because this fan base, bro, is going off the rails with too many. If it was just 1 or 2 people that were going off the rails right now, it'd be fine. But there's so many people that are just going completely off the rails. Like, you would think we're 10 games below 500 right now. But we have a winning record. Like, yeah, this sucks, but shoot, what's the regular season for you guys? What, like, A, why are you guys a fan if you can't handle, adversity without completely going off the rails? Like, I get frustrated, but shoot, like, I see so many people, they'll leave comments, and it's like, oh, I'm done watching this team until they figure things out. Maybe I'll be back in a month, maybe not. It's like, are you a fan then? Like, I don't get it. Like, I understand being frustrated with the team, but I see so many comments. I'm done watching this team for now. I can't. Like, dang, you can't handle any sort of adversity as a fan. I mean, it's fine, but also you can't handle any sort of adversity with this team as a fan. Like, I mean, I don't understand, because this is a normal season for this team, so I'm kind of confused why. I don't know why people can't handle the ups and downs. Like, it is what it is. But what's the regular season for? It's to figure out where your team's struggling and then try and upgrade it at the deadline or work on it in practice and figure things out. We still aren't even halfway through the season. We are literally, we're like 40% through the season, and we still haven't had our best defensive player yet. Like, there's still some time to improve. We've seen this organization in the past struggle the first half of the season, go on a tear the second half of the season. The Boston Celtics last year were like a 500 team through the first half of the season. They looked just like this. They were having blowups in the locker room, and then all of a sudden they figured it out and almost won a championship. So it's I don't know. People are acting like the sky is falling, and it's crazy to me because if you look at our games, Eric, we would be playing quote-unquote good basketball right now, even with this loss, if we just executed a couple more possessions in the previous games that we've lost. Mm-hmm. That's what's crazy to me, is we're only like a couple possessions away from winning like 8 out of 10 or something like that. The 2 losses against the Thunder, 1 possession losses, came down to the final possession. Execute better a couple of different possessions on offense or defense, we win those games. Okay, the Denver game at home, execute a little better on that final defensive possession and get a stop, and that's a win, right? If we, that's the thing, is 3 games came down to final possessions that we lost. Every other game we've won by multiple possessions. If those 3 games that came down to a final possession, we actually took care of business and just executed on a couple of other plays, we would be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We would have won 9 out of 11 games even with this loss. We'd be talking about how we had won 9 out of 10 games going into this game if we just executed on a final possession or 2 in 3 of the previous 10 games. That's what it comes down to. So just slight improvement in defense, offense, making an extra shot, that sort of thing will completely change your guys' tune from the sky is falling to, oh, this team is great and a contender. Those 3 games are the difference between 17 and 16 and 20 and 13. That's the difference between being 8th in the West and 2nd or 3rd. That's how close everything is. So it's never as drastically bad as you guys say it. If it was drastically bad, we would have been getting blown out in those losses, and we would have lost more games recently. But we are competitive on a night in, night out basis. We're still competitive in this game against a healthy Denver Nuggets team on the 6th game of a road trip in altitude with Anthony Simons unable to make a shot. With Yusuf Nurkic on a minutes restriction and in foul trouble. And we were still, it was a 10-point deficit down the line, but we had a lead at halftime. It's not like we got completely dominated in this game, man. So that's the thing. Things have to improve. There's areas to improve. The roster can improve. The bench is terrible. It's not as drastic as people act like, man. I understand the frustration, but oh my goodness.
Yeah, before I get to my point, Lord Ginnick, we get it. You love Rudy Gay. We've read your messages. Please stop spamming that. You want us to get Rudy Gay in chat. Thank you. But here's why I'm so frustrated and why these losses piling up aggravate me. It's because there were points in this game we looked unbeatable. We looked like one of those teams we talked about for a while that could push for home court advantage and be one of the top seeds in the West. And it's just frustrating when we play like that for a really good stretch of time in the second quarter, and then we come out of halftime flat and just completely fall on our face and give up 35 points and only score 16, including I think we had 6 points in the first 8 minutes of the quarter, right? That kind of stuff bugs me. But if you look at it from a glass full type perspective, there are moments where you can see this team figuring it out and they look like a good team, and it is possible for them to get back on track. I'm not as positive as you. I'm kind of frustrated, but you can definitely see glimpses of this team being good if they can figure it out. And that's why I get frustrated when they make dumb mistakes that they shouldn't be doing and lose focus so often. When Chauncey, I see Ish asking several times about what can Chauncey do to improve it. I think he's just got to find a way. What he's doing is not working in terms of accountability and making sure players are focused more often than not on the defensive end and locked into the game plans, things like that. if he's telling players like Drew Eubanks not to chase blocks and he's still chasing blocks and stuff like that, at some point you got to, I don't know, do something about, like, if you fall asleep off ball, you're going to the bench for a minute or something. You know what I mean? Like, just something, like, to try to motivate players.
Drew Eubanks, though, like, I don't think Chauncey can fix him.
Well, I'm not saying he has to fix him, but what I'm saying,
him play in a different way. It just seems like his natural inclination is to just chase blocks, and I mean, I don't know. He's just.
But what I'm saying is they need to find a way to make it so that these players realize if they fall asleep on defense, they can't. And this is something I haven't brought up in a long time, but like, I found it fascinating. I watched a lot of Vanderbilt basketball the year they had Aaron Nesmith. He got hurt, but like I watched a ton of film on him and stuff like that. And so I learned about this thing that Jerry Stackhouse had. Was he had like a grading system for every player. And so like he graded like your box outs, your closeouts, your individual one-on-one defense, your communication, and different things, and gave each player a grade, and like you basically got like a passing grade or a failing grade for each game. And if it was out of like 100, so if you got lower than like a 70 or 80% or whatever for a game, you'd have to go like watch film with them and break it down and stuff like that. And the players all talked about how that it was tough at first, but eventually they didn't want to have to watch film with them after the game, so they would like be locked in on the floor, and then eventually it just becomes like natural. You're not thinking about it anymore, and that's when you can actually play good defense. So I don't know what Chauncey's doing in terms of accountability and film watching and motivation and things like that, but I think he needs to kind of tweak that somehow. I don't know if that means getting on them more, or like being more strict, or more of an ass, something like that. But I feel like he does need to mix it up a little bit, because I feel like the players are kind of slipping in and out of playing good defense, and they're not locked in all the time.
Yeah, I mean, but also at the same time, it's like when a starter makes that mistake, who are you going to sub in? If you sub somebody in, they're going to be making the same mistake. Like, this bench is so bad, I can't even like get too frustrated with that, because, dude, you're not subbing anybody into this game that's going to help anything.
I absolutely hate that, because the whole point of accountability is it doesn't matter who's making the mistake. You pay the same price whether you're Shaedon Sharpe making that mistake and you get benched in the second half. Why does he get benched when a starter makes that same mistake 4 times? You know what I mean? Like, that, to me, you're only going to fix it if you hold every single person accountable to the exact same standards. There's different
forms of accountability other than just benching someone.
Well, I'm not saying benching. I'm saying he has to do something different. I'm not saying that's the answer. But what he is doing right now, I feel like, is not working in terms of accountability. And I feel like he needs to tweak it somehow.
Yeah, but at some point, you got to have players that'll step up and take it upon themselves to play better defense. And that's the problem right now, is we don't really have that. In the starting lineup, there's stretches where it's like the defense or the starting 5 takes upon themselves to play better defense. And I think you saw that during the second quarter in that comeback. Like, they'll have these spirited moments and they'll come out and put upon themselves to play better defense. But like, that's the thing, is like Josh Hart getting back cut a bunch. I don't think that's anything to do from like a motivational standpoint or anything like that. Like, he's not trying, because that dude plays his ass off. It's just like a lack of mental focus. And it's like, I don't know if there's any solution for Chauncey to like get these guys to be more focused. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know exactly what Chauncey, because I don't know if like holding players accountable will therefore increase their focus. Like, I don't really understand. I don't really know. Like, maybe we have too many players that can't lock in and stay focused, but also I'll blame this on Chauncey. The matchups are bad, because a lot of our bad defensive possessions was stuff like Michael Porter Jr. is being guarded by Anthony Simons, and he just walks down to the block, gets a pass over the top, and gets a lay-in, right? So he has to get the matchups better. There was a play in this game where Josh Hart was guarding Jamal Murray, and Jeremy Grant was guarding Michael Porter Jr. Josh Hart kept Jamal Murray in front of him, played great defense, lockdown defense. Jamal Murray kicked the ball to Michael Porter Jr., and Jeremy Grant blocked his jump shot, and we got a fast break dunk out of it. And then it was like, I tweeted about it. It's like, yay, good matchups. Awesome. So that's on Chauncey, but there's just plays that these guys have where I don't know if it's a lack of communication or what, but it's like, it's almost like it might be a situation where guys are going into overdrive mentally, worrying about too much stuff that's not their responsibility, and therefore they're forgetting their responsibilities. Like, if you're, guarding off the ball on the weak side, and you're supposed to help or rotate a certain way, but you don't trust your teammates that are on the floor with you, and you're expecting a breakdown or worried about a breakdown, you might be thinking like, oh, I might have to go and cover for that, even if it's not your responsibility, because you don't trust the other four guys on the floor to do exactly what they need to do, because good defense is basically a shell, right? And it's, guys rotate. If one guy rotates, next guy has to rotate, next guy has to rotate, etc. So I almost wonder if it's a situation where, like, especially with Josh Hart, he's like trying to pay attention to stuff that's not necessarily his responsibility, and then he gets back cut, which isn't necessarily, excusable or anything. I'm not trying to excuse it, but I don't really know what the solution is for that. Like, how do you get it to the point where every defensive player can trust everybody that's on the court with them, and they just have to worry about their job? Because we talk about over-helping and guys being out of position off ball, and I think that comes from a lack of trust.
Yeah, well, I think the problem is there was I forgot what happened on this possession, but Sharp had a great defensive possession in the bottom left corner where he prevented someone from driving, got up and pressured him, and then we played really good defense for 20 seconds on that possession. And then I forgot who it was, but someone fell asleep and allowed a bucket there. I forgot what happened that play. I'll have to go back and look at it. But it's just it's so frustrating when one person messes up when we had such good defense for multiple rotations and things. We had, in this game, I'll see if I can find it on Brandt's breakdown for later. We had our best defensive possession I've seen going back since the Western Conference Finals. And there was a play where Josh Hart helped, and Anthony realized that he could get to the corner 3-point shooter quicker than Hart. So he communicated to Hart to get his man, and he ran out and got his man, and they made several good rotations after that. And it was really awesome. Just unfortunately, there's way too many times where someone breaks down and loses focus. And to me, if the defense doesn't look in sync for a majority of the game, to me, that's still on the coaching.
If and you could say defense isn't in sync for the majority of the game, it's the coaching, not the players.
I feel like in a team concept or whatever, maybe this, like you said, maybe the schemes are too confusing. Maybe they're mixing them up too much. I don't even think it's the schemes
or them mixing it up. I just think guys are so used off the ball. Guys are so used to dribble penetration that they forget or lose focus of their off-ball responsibilities, and therefore will get back cut because they're looking at the ball handler worried he's going to have to drive, I'm going to have to rotate or this or that. You have to be ready to do that, but at a certain point, that happens so much that I feel like you kind of lock in on that and you lose focus of what your other responsibilities are.
We had 10 times in this game where someone was guarding Gordon under the basket and went to double team Jokic. There's zero chance you're going to get there in time. And Jokic had easy passes to players. It's just, to me, that's not, I don't think you can get away with just hoping that the players figure it out on the floor when they make those big mental errors and stuff like that.
Yeah, I just don't think there's really much of a solution outside of
we lost anyway.
Bringing in.
Who cares? We lost.
I'm saying
right?
long term.
I know, but like you keep saying like the benching thing doesn't work, but because our bench sucks, which I completely agree with. But we're losing games anyway. Like I don't see what the harm at least.
Okay, say we're playing a competitive game, and at the start of the third quarter, Nurkic, who's played solid defense all game, makes a mistake, right? Automatically, we got to put Eubanks in.
Okay. So there's a difference between making a mistake and doing something that you're not supposed to do. Like, if he says to Josh Hart, I don't want you helping in this situation, and Josh gets caught over helping or something, then yeah, like I just told you not to over help in that situation. What are you doing? My bad, coach. It won't happen again. Put me back in a minute, and I got you. Like, that's the kind of attitude I want to see. Like I said, that's not necessarily the solution, but what we're doing right now on defense isn't working either. So I would like to see that kind of approach, just to see if maybe players could get more locked in to not fall asleep off ball. Because like the times, if it's a mistake where you just stand there and your guy cuts to the basket and you completely lost sight of him and stuff like that, to me, those are situations where, that's a mistake and like a worthy of that kind of moment. If it's like just you got beat off the dribble, or you helped in a situation where it was like you could tell that then you needed to help, possibly, it's not like an egregious over like mess up or whatever. Like, I'm not talking about benching every time someone does that. That would be ridiculous because that happens all game.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think I can't sit here blaming the coaching for this stuff because, I mean, most of our issues I feel like are with bench guys, and if you play those guys less, then you're just running your starters into the ground, which makes them more prone to making defensive mistakes, and then what,
We're running our starters into the ground, like, at one point when
I think there's a reason for that,
Ant was struggling. He had played 33 minutes or so at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and he's out there trying to go like 1-on-5 because we have no offense and we're not running any sets and stuff. It's just, to me, I feel like that is part of the problem, is that the starters are getting tired a little bit too.
I just feel like you could hypothetically tie back any mistake any player makes or any, problem back towards the coaching staff in terms of like, well, they need to fix that, right? Like, that needs to stop happening. So the coaching staff, it's on them to fix it. For me, I think that these players would be better if they had, an extra defensive player out there, like, a guy you could trust to lock up off on the ball, a guy you could trust to get through a screen. Then it comes down to, okay, well, that player's going to get the job done. That means that I just need to get the job done off the ball. I need to lock in off the ball. I don't have to worry because Gary Payton II can take care of this. Like, that sort of trust is needed, and that's what the best defensive teams have, is they trust each other, and they will do their responsibilities properly. I just think, like, when Eubanks is out there, I don't think players trust him the way I've seen players react to some of the mistakes he does. I don't think players trust him to do the right thing, and it kind of throws everything for a loop. And also, it's like, the one criticism I have is matchup based, but the starters, I think, are just a mixed bag. Them being ran into the ground, I think, is contributing to some of the lapses. And I think, I don't know, Chauncey's stuck between a rock and a hard place, because either you play this bench lineup more and probably have a higher chance of losing games, or you keep playing your starters these heavy minutes and they're more prone to mistakes. And that's the thing, is like, when you're playing a guy 36, 37, 38 minutes a game, and he's having some of these lapses, but you can't trust the guy behind him, can you really be that tough on the starter? So that's the things that I think about. I just think this roster, it would do this roster wonders if you had Gary Payton the second back, and then you could find a way to add another defensive piece at the deadline. I just in just a shooter off the bench, just another defensive piece and a shooter at the bench, and GP2 healthy. I want to see what that team looks like. Yeah, it could still have problems for sure, but it would at least be easier to tell, like, okay, well, we got a really good point of attack defender who we can sub in earlier in the game. So I can, you can sub out Ant early because you have somebody that's actually going to get the job done on the defensive end and lock down whoever might be scoring against Anthony Simons or whoever might be scoring against Josh Hart. But I think the best defensive lineup is obviously GP2 being the main point of attack defender, Josh Hart guarding a secondary guy, and then Jeremy Grant, playing a forward and helping around the rim and playing team defense. The problem is he's matching Jeremy Grant up on the ball, and that's not working. And that's the thing, is I feel like Chauncey is making a mistake there, but also if he had GP2, a healthy GP2, and maybe another defensive piece, maybe he'd be less prone to doing that. I don't know. But I just think it's a tough spot in the end.
Well, to be fair, I'm also in complete agreement on pieces we need different. I'm just saying, like, short of a trade happening on Christmas and having a nice Christmas present for all of us, we need to start figuring some of these things out in-house too. Whether it's a possibility or not, it's just frustrating when we do see them play for stretches the right way and then just fall apart at other times.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I've kind of realized is, like, even the best coaches will have years or teams where they can't figure out problems. Like, look at Popovich. I mean, the Spurs are tanking and whatnot, but I think he's trying to coach them how to play defense, and they're not a good defensive team. They're terrible. Steve Kerr right now, even before Steph Curry got hurt, that Golden State team, after winning a championship this year, is just a bottom 10 team defensively. Those aren't similar situations to Portland's, but I think there are situations that arise that a head coach can't fix, and it comes down to, of course, like, roster would be the number one thing with that, but at some point certain guys got to take it upon themselves. There are mistakes being made, but that's the thing. I just think it's a multitude of things. Chauncey isn't blameless in my mind whatsoever, but it's just a multitude of different things, and I think fixing the bench could help with some of Chauncey's stuff.
So if we know we suck, when was the last time we hard trapped out of a pick and roll situation?
I mean, I would be a fan of that, but I think, like, we've done hard shows, and the problem is that it's not aggressive enough, so that could be a solution.
It almost always results in a switch.
Yeah. The problem is to trap is you do still have to get through the screen as the guy guarding on the ball. It's a little bit easier, but I'm
just saying, why are we not?
We should be. We should be switching it up. We should be switching it up. But that's the thing, is, like, I'm not saying Chauncey's blameless. We should be switching it up more, absolutely. I just don't look at it as like, oh, well, this comes back to the coaching needs to be better, or this, I just think it comes back to, like, multiple different things.
Yeah, I just feel like this coaching staff just keeps trying the same thing, and it's I'd like to see them mix it up a little more, because in the end, you have to be able to do different things if you're going to succeed in the playoffs. So why not start now, at least trying different wrinkles?
Yeah, I mean, 2 of our last 4 games, we had solid defensive games, solid to good. I mean, we held the Thunder to 101. We held the Rockets to 95. Like, the Rockets aren't good, and the Thunder are better, but still not a playoff caliber team. But I thought the defense in those games was relatively fine. The game against the Mavericks, it was bad. The game against the Nuggets, it was bad. But before that, like, that last Timberwolves game, despite the Timberwolves scoring 112, I think a lot of that was in garbage time. Like, they played, I was at that game in person, and I was impressed with some of the defense they played. So, I don't know. Like, this team right now, to me, is just a completely mixed bag. And I don't know if it comes down to completely switching things up and just throwing a trap out there and throwing a bunch of stuff out there, or just trying to refine things so that the good stretches of defense occur more, because it's just inconsistent. It's like, how do you find that consistency? Is throwing out different schemes going to help them find that consistency more? I don't know. Maybe that will confuse them more. So that's really what it comes down to me, because I think this team is an average NBA team right now, but their highs and lows are bigger than other teams. Like, they'll look like a contender one second, they'll look like the worst team in the league another second. Like, they have these wild swings, so it's just trying to figure out what goes right when we're playing well and trying to maximize that, and I think that's the tricky part.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not seeing the same thing you're seeing. I think even in the games where we hold teams down, it hasn't been because we've been playing like dominant defense. I
didn't say dominant.
I know. I'm just saying, like, I think I'm less like score dependent. So like I
thought we played good defense in a couple of those games. Like,
yeah, but to me, some of those teams too don't have the personnel to like, or the schemes to make us pay. Like,
yeah, but also in the past though, when we've had terrible defenses, how much has it shown against those bad teams?
But I mean, like, even in the years where we were 30th in defense, like we still held teams like. There'd be random games where we held the Lakers to 98 points or something, you know? Yeah. So I don't know. It's not like you're not capable of having an occasional good defensive game. But like against a team like Denver, who exploits any of those off ball mistakes, it rears its ugly head. And that's where I'll agree with some of the people in chat, where if you play that bad on defense in the playoffs, it's going to be really hard to win a series, because teams like Denver, especially players like Jokic, just eat that up.
Oh, well, yeah, you got to play better defense in the playoffs, absolutely. But that's why you got to get players that can play in the playoffs, instead of right now we have five players that should be playing in the playoffs. We don't have a single player off our bench that I think should be playing in the playoffs. So that's the thing, is your bench is supposed to prop up your... I don't know how to explain this. Like, you need players off your bench that have specific roles that they do well, so that if you're struggling with something in a game, you can substitute that player in order to deal with that. That's what a good bench does. Like, that's where it's like having Gary Payton II. If we're struggling to start a game defensively, we're struggling to contain somebody, we sub in Gary Payton II, and he's one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, and he can help give us a spark that way, and he can kind of solve that problem. You know, maybe guys just aren't hitting shots, or the spacing is weird, and it would be nice to have a shooter that you could sub into the game, and he's going to space the floor, and if they keep playing off of him, he's going to make them pay, because he's going to knock down threes, right? And maybe an extra shot creator, right? Like, you want players that you can plug in for a starter in order to solve certain problems, but then also during the regular season more so than the playoffs. Like, that's more of a playoff thing, especially, is just having players that you can plug and play for specific reasons. But in the regular season, you're going to have these bench guys playing stretches together, late first, early second, late third, early fourth. Right now, it's just, there's nobody on this bench that you would plug and play for a specific reason at all. The only guy you could say is maybe Keon, but Keon didn't really get the job done defensively today. I think he probably, had a couple good moments, but he was just kind of out there. He didn't solve anything.
He was pretty good, other than a couple plays. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely our best defender off the bench.
Yeah, like, That's why I said Keon might be our best bench player right now, because he actually does something. But that's the problem, Eric, is I wish we had problem solvers off the bench, not problem causers.
Yeah, I'm more worried about the starters when they're making mistakes and not locked in and stuff. I actually thought, honestly, because I've been starting to keep track of this kind of stuff. Not physically, but in my head. And I didn't think of Dame on the defensive end one time tonight.
Yeah.
congrats to him. Like, I don't know if that's just because he's being hidden on defense or what, but at least he didn't make any mistakes really falling asleep off ball too often.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
so he's at least been neutral since he's come back from his calf.
Because the starters can inconsistently have stretches of good defense in games, maybe not for an entire game, but they'll have stretches where they play good defense. I want to be able to have a good enough bench to where you can keep those guys fresh enough during the course of a game, and Chauncey's not playing them 37, 39 minutes. Like, Grant played 37, Hart played 37, Dame played 39, Ant played 39. That shows you that a coach doesn't trust his bench at all, the bench he has right now, number one. But number two...
In altitude, too.
Yeah, in altitude. Number two, it's like... Those guys are playing heavy minutes, like some of the heaviest minutes in the league, if not, like, Portland starters, at least those 4 guys that I listed, are probably playing the heaviest minutes in the league. Like, they're playing way, way, way too much right now because this bench is such a problem, and it's tough to expect them. It's just tough to consistently give top-notch effort defensively when you're playing that many minutes. So that's where it's just, I want a better bench to obviously solve the issues with the bench, to be able to plug somebody in to fix some defensive issues that occur in a game, but then also to keep the starters more fresh where maybe they can play solid to good defense more consistently.
Yeah. And it's no wonder they keep showing up on the injury report.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. It's tough, man. But it's not a terrible problem to have. Like, a bench is easier to fix than a starting lineup. So... Ishfluent says, our players don't have roles, they do something different every game. Who are you talking about specifically? And also, to be a good role player, you have to fill a specific role. We got guys that don't fill roles. Like, honestly, what is Trendon Watford supposed to be as a role player? Like, what's his role supposed to be? Like, what's his skill set suggest he should be, Eric?
Kind of like a small ball 5, but he's not really a great rim protector, so I don't know. He's kind of a tweener in my mind.
He doesn't really have a position.
It's tough, yeah.
Because he's not a 4, he's not a 5. Like, that's the problem with Trendon Watford. If he was bigger, he could be a 5, absolutely. Then he could fill a role as like a Thaddeus Young role or something like that, like a playmaking backup 5, and he'd be a better rim protector if he was taller. But the problem is, he doesn't have the size for that. He's more of a 4. The problem is he can't shoot. And the problem is he's not good enough defending on the perimeter yet. I think he can be, but he's not there yet. He has good moments, but it's not consistent enough. And he can only make a shot within 5 feet. 5 to 6 feet. Maybe 7 if you stretch that floater out. So that's the problem. It's like, what role is he supposed to play?
Oh, he had that wide open 3 look pretty good.
Ishfluent says, Sharp, for example, Torrey. Yeah, that was disgusting. Sharp, for example, Torrey. One game we go to him, the next night he gets no action and sits in the corner. Sharp can't dribble. Sharp can't create off the dribble. Like, what do you want him to be doing offensively as a role player? Because his role player is not gonna his role play, like, his role. It's not anything on the defensive end. It's not anything that comes with him being a shot creator off the dribble or him creating for teammates. It's just him playing off of other action offensively. So him sitting in the corner is exactly what his skill set would suggest his role is. Because from that corner, he should be looking to cut baseline and catch lobs. He should be looking to cut middle if his defender isn't paying attention to him, and he can catch a pass and make a lay-in or maybe get a dunk out of it. And then he's spotting up, where he can catch and shoot, or the only off-the-dribble stuff he really has is attacking closeouts right now. So catching if he gets right off the line, maybe 2 dribbles, hit that pull-up jumper. He hit one of those today. That is exactly what his skill set would suggest his role should be. Now you can get into it like, oh, well, we should be running, some creative sets to try and get him a lob or get him space or whatnot, but that's not really anything to do with the player's role. That's more so like, what sets are we running? What is our system? Mm-hmm. So that's not really anything to do with his role, because like the way he's playing right now is exactly how his role would suggest. But that's the problem when you have a bench that's not skilled. Like, if we had a stretch 4, he'd be out there spotting up, knocking down threes. If we had a shot creator, he'd be shot creating. There's a reason this bench looks like a bunch of guys that don't know what to do. It's because they're a bunch of guys that don't know what to do because they can't do much.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
It's tough. Play Ibubaji, right? I don't think.
did you see in that maybe it was in the trail, maybe it was something else, but John Butler dunking on him in practice off the dribble.
I didn't see that.
It's the first clip I've seen of Ibubaji in a Blazer uniform, whether it's a practice uniform or game uniform. It was John Butler just driving and dunking. But that dude's lanky, or not lanky, he's tall. Doesn't have the longest wingspan, but yeah, I mean, this is why I don't understand people that think the sky's falling. Like, having a better bench will make it easier for Ant to get going in games because he'll be able to play with the bench lineup. Theoretically, Eric, Ant against the bench lineup should be able to help him get going because he's playing against weaker players, right? Now, unfortunately, like, you got Bruce Brown off the bench. He's a really good defensive player, but theoretically, like, he should be able to get going. The problem is that he's just in such a bad lineup. He doesn't know what to do. He's, like, having to create 1-on-2 consistently. Like, I think fixing the bench will fix a lot of problems because I think the starters are still good. That's why I think everybody talking about how bad Ant is and acting like the sky is falling and blaming our starters for this or that. I just don't agree with that. This bench got to be better. I mean, how many times do we see them get outscored with the star player off the court and the other team still goes on a run with just random bench guys? It's not good.
Ish asks, what do you think about running Dame with the bench more? Well, the problem is he stays in there in the first quarter with the bench.
Yeah.
When the bench starts subbing in.
And
so
it's
I
still
think
not better.
they're basically running the same. It's like split between Dame and Ant. Ant's probably a little more than split, but it's like 60-40 with Dame at the bench anyway. Like, maybe you could switch who subs out first or whatnot, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's a lot they could do differently there other than just switch based on game flow who subs out first or not.
Alley Oops says great players don't need a bench to elevate their own play though. Like, okay, well, Ant's not Luka Doncic, unfortunately. If he was, we wouldn't feel like the sky is falling right now. We'd be living in luxury. And because he's not Luka Doncic, like, when you got other guys on the court that defenders don't have to guard, that's an extra defender sent your way. I don't care. Even the best player in the world can't go 1-on-3 and score. Maybe they can occasionally, but they're not going to be able to do it consistently. You put 3 defenders on Giannis, he's not consistently scoring through that. Guess what he's doing, though? He's kicking out the shooters for 3, and they're cashing in wide open threes, and it's like, look at Giannis's playmaking. This Bucks team is rolling because Pat Connaughton is 4 for 7 from 3. With Portland, it's like, oh, he kicks out to Trent Watford. Wide open 3. The sound of broken glass. That's what it is. So I don't really know what you want him to do.
I mean, alley-oops. Dallas's bench sucks. I think we're tied with Dallas right now, right?
Yeah. I mean, Ant's still having a really good season, so I don't really know what you're saying. And yeah, Dallas has struggled because of a lack of a bench.
I mean, they had Christian Wood coming off the bench, but I think he started the last couple games, but their on-off splits with Doncic are pretty much the reason why they're not better.
Yeah, and to but anyone moronically saying trade Dame in chat, stop. We're never going to talk about that, and he can't even be traded right now, and you're just showing that you're not a loyal person. Anyway.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is I think they're going to look back at this stretch of games, both the one where we lost 8 of 10 and then this road trip / close losses at home, things like that. And I think they're going to kick themselves when they have a much better January and realize that if they would have just taken care of some of these games, and that's the frustrating part. But I still think there's a chance they could get right here in January and be fine the rest of the season.
Yep.
Especially with a couple of good solid boos by Connie.
I mean, like, we're 3-1 possession losses at the very end of a game away from winning 9 out of 10, like, in this stretch. And that's the thing, is if we had a better bench, it probably doesn't come down to that final possession. We probably win. You know? Like, that's what it comes down to for me, is we're still close. The West is so close. We're not leaps and bounds behind any team. Our starters can compete with anyone. If they play well, they can outplay anyone in the West from a starting lineup standpoint. Offensively, they're terrific. Sometimes guys have bad shooting nights. That happens with any team, any game. So, obviously it comes down to the defense. You get, some defensive help off the bench, and I think it can at least be an average defense and a top offense. And with how close teams are, an average defense on any given night could play well enough. So that's what it comes down to for me. GP2 will be interesting to see him. Hopefully next game. Hopefully that'll be fun and wash the taste out of our mouths. But it's like we are close, like very close to talking about this being a really good stretch, and a little bit more help probably takes us over the top in a couple of those games and makes a world of difference.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just having, if like people say, like, oh, one player is not going to make a difference, but I mean that could have been the difference between at least 2 or 3 games, having just 1 or 2 more stops with a Gary Payton.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's why I'm not sitting here panicking. I've never panicked all season. I've never panicked all season. I'm not going to panic now. Maybe I'll panic on trade deadline day if this is our bench going into the playoffs. But until then, until the clock hits noon, right? That's the trade deadline time, noon, if I recall correctly, or 1. I don't know.
Like 1 or 2, yeah.
But yeah, in early February. After that, if this is our bench lineup going into the playoffs, I'm ranting about Cronin and not being able to upgrade the bench, and I'm panicking. But you guys might be in for a nice surprise. We'll see. We'll see what he can pull off.
It's funny because the guy who said to trade Dame, and then after you said that, says, then we need a better bench lineup. Enough said. Yeah,
cool,
no crap.
so,
that's what I've been saying the whole entire stream. Yeah, so you're agreeing with us.
Yes, awesome, cool. I'm glad we could find some common ground somehow. Yeah, I don't know. This bench lineup disgusts me, man. I thought the bench was going to be better than this. But I also thought we'd have, not having Nas, I think, hurts this team. Even though Nas wasn't playing great, he was at least able to knock down shots and, straight line drive. The problem is he didn't really break out at all, but you kind of forget that Nas is actually a guy that will be playing with this bench lineup, and maybe off of his, absence, maybe he's more recovered from the core surgery, because that seemed to still be bothering him. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, him, GP2, a deadline acquisition, maybe a buyout acquisition. Yeah, that's what I want to see. Anyway.
Yeah. So, to answer Hyperprime's question from earlier, are there any centers you would look at other than obviously Naz Reid, but I don't know if
Naz Reid. Yeah. On the trade market, it's tough. Is there any off the top of your head?
I mean, most of the centers, it's tough because they make more than that $6.5 million, and I don't think any of them are worth going into the tax for. The only name that keeps popping up in my mind is Daniel Gafford, who makes close to the minimum this year, but next year it jumps up to $10 million. So I think he could be had probably. But the question is, do they want to pay him $10 million, especially if they re-sign Hart and stuff next year? So that's tough there. But he's probably the most realistic in terms of gettable centers that don't put us in a situation where we're giving up a ton of assets and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to have Zach Collins back, but unfortunately he makes $7 million.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of looking through rosters right now, actually.
Yeah.
I don't, honestly, I would take Gorgie Jang right now over Eubanks. And he plays for the Spurs. I would like to aim higher than that, though. I would like to aim higher than that. Nerlens Noel makes too much, in my opinion, to make that sort of deal work in a way that makes sense. Like maybe Mason Plumlee gets bought out, but I don't know if he solves anything.
Yeah.
Like he can pass as a big, but is that what we need? We need somebody that can help us defensively, and he doesn't really help. I mean, that's the problem. This is going to be an unheralded guy that you probably don't have to trade a first for. So is that guy going to be good enough defensively to help you? I don't know. Like, I've always been a Mo Wagner fan, but he doesn't help us defensively. But he could shoot at least, so...
He's been okay defensively since he started playing this year.
Also, they probably keep him there in Orlando with his brother.
Yeah, so guys like Mo Bamba and Nerlens don't make too much unless you want to trade Hart for him, which isn't going to happen. So Nick Richards is an interesting one, just kind of like a buy low. Like, I know he's not necessarily low value for them because he's been their like backup center this year, but they drafted Mark Williams. They haven't played him at all. I mean, there's another guy if they've already soured on him. Not necessarily that those guys are capable of it, but what you need to do is find the next like Rashawn Holmes or Nicholas Claxton type player, Jakob Poeltl. Like, find that guy before he breaks out. Identify that. That's why you have assistant GM, scouting departments, those kind of things. So like, try to find one of those type of guys before they bust out and identify that. And maybe you can get him for a couple second-round picks or something like that. Plus, he's young, so I don't know. We don't really have a trade possibility. And please stop bringing up Miles Bridges. That guy's a piece of crap, and no team should sign him. It looks like the Hornets are going to, but they actually own his bird rights too and can match any trade, any offer for him. He's a restricted free agent, so they could actually, if another team signed him, match that, and it looks like they're already planning to sign him.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about that, but yeah, big hell no to Miles Bridges. Yeah, I mean, everything for me, Eric, always comes back to Naz Reid. Like, we got that dude solves so many issues for us if he's off our bench. And the problem is, at this point, he might not be gettable. I don't know if he was gettable in the past, but I've been screaming for years to get Naz Reid. I've done videos like a year and a half ago. I even tweeted one out where I was talking about Naz Reid. Like, could score off the dribble, could shoot threes, is a better defensive player in my opinion than Drew Eubanks. Just more solid, and just more aware. He's not great, but the problem is Naz Reid's only 23 years old. They could view him as part of the future. My whole thing is like they have Gobert and Towns and stagger them. Do they need Naz Reid? But he's a good player, so you're going to have to give up something to get him. The problem is he probably has, I don't know, Eric, at this point, he might have first-round draft pick value, which sounds kind of crazy, but, like, would you trade Keon Johnson right now for Naz Reid?
I mean, I think you have to if you're Portland.
Yeah, I would do that. I would do that in a heartbeat.
I don't think they do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think they do it either. I think they need something else. It would probably come down to Nasir Little for Naz Reid, which I could also be talked into that. I wouldn't like it as much, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with players like Naz Reid, and Jared Vanderbilt comes in the same category. It's like, I think it's the way those players have played this year, it's going to cost a first to get them.
Yep.
And with Naz Reid, the problem is he's a free agent and it's going to be looking at if he plays well, even
he's restricted, right?
I think so, but
honestly, if he's not restricted, it might help us get him at least for this year. I don't know if it'd be a bad thing if he was an unrestricted free agent.
I think he is. But the thing is, it just comes down to how much are you comfortable to pay him. So
yeah, if he's unrestricted.
if they're talking to his agent or whatever, and he's wanting like 15 million or something this
Yeah.
summer, like
I
it's
mean,
tough
at
to
some
give up
point you gotta
assets.
pay for a champion, so it comes down to Jody with that. Like Jody, are you okay with paying this guy potentially this much money in the offseason, as well as paying Grant, as well as paying Josh Hart, and racking up that huge luxury tax bill? I mean, it's at the point where it's like, okay, well, does she want to, how serious is she as an owner? If she does all that, nobody can criticize her anymore, and as far as her not being invested or whatever. But yeah, that's tough. But yeah, that's the guy it comes back to for me. Not that's the thing. If anybody said Drew Eubanks for a backup center spot last year, like I feel like everybody in here would have laughed at that idea. As far as a team trying to contend, having Drew Eubanks as their backup center, because the Spurs wouldn't even play him and they sucked, and then they gave up on him, and then the Raptors like signed him and then gave up on him like pretty quickly as well. Teams didn't want him. He's basically a fringe rotation player that honestly, if we cut him, I don't know if he'd end up on another NBA team right now, Eric.
Yeah, I
Like
don't
he
know.
was almost out of the league, and we're like, okay, well we're gonna take him because we're tanking, so we're gonna start him, and then we're gonna use him as our backup center when we're trying to win. It was so stupid. Like the Eubanks thing just drove me crazy. The fact that he's our backup center going into the league, and the more I watch him, it's getting more and more frustrating. He finishes layups. That's it. He's so limited. Anyway,
No, we have no draft picks for 2023 and no tradable first. We have a few tradable seconds in the far off future, but not a whole lot of draft capital to trade this year.
if I see one more Rudy Gay comment, I'm done seeing Rudy Gay comments because they don't even make sense. Also, I've seen the name Rudy Gay 20 times this stream. That's probably 20 times too many.
It's been about 40 actually.
Yeah, we get it. Rudy Gay, Rudy Gay, Rudy Gay, Rudy Gay. We get it. Anyway, Laser, we're not gonna get picks for Drew. I don't think we could get literally anything for Drew. Like, we might use him as salary thrown into a trade to make something match, but I guarantee you that's not a team wanting him. I don't think we could get a second round pick for Drew Eubanks. Maybe, but what team out there is desperate for a mediocre backup center? Excuse me.
Um, what's not Malcolm? He suggests benching Sharp because he's still adjusting to the NBA and not really helping the team. I don't think that's the right move at all. I think you have to let him take his lumps and hope the reps help him long term. Wiseman makes too much money. Who are you trading for Wiseman? Anthony Simmons.
Ugh. All right, back.
Ish says, do you remember that bench with Curry, Cantor, and Hood? Good times. Yeah, that was nice. I mean, Sharp might get some minutes cut when Gary Payton's back, but yeah. At times, he's been our best scorer off the bench, the only one who can score off the bench. So it's kind of, I don't know. I think we just got to hope that as the season progresses, he gets better and better. But you also need to think about it long term as well.
The bench needs to be, for the playoffs, GP2, a forward, and a backup big.
Antonio, Dario Saric makes like $9 million. Are you trading Hart for him?
Yeah. It's the problem is salaries. It's the problem. That's why I haven't gone deep in on trade targets yet, is because it's limited.
There are chances. Like if Sarge is part of a big trade, and the team that gets him is like rebuilding or doesn't want him, there could be guys like that on the buyout market. As a free agent, that wouldn't be bad. But yeah.
I'll be back in like 5.
All right. And the other problem with why we can't just sign a free agent is because we are right up against the tax line, and signing a free agent would put us over the tax line. So we can't just sign someone outright like LaMarcus right now either. And that's part of the problem when we lock this roster into place. Khaled, who are you trading for Bojan Bogdanovic? Eric Olson says, would you want Wenyen Gabriel back? Yeah, I actually think Wenyen Gabriel would be good in Chauncey's system. I think he is one of those like athletic bigs that is somewhat switchable that I think he would be pretty good. And for OG is a non-starter for me. Yeah, I just don't trust OG to be healthy, even though he's been relatively healthy this year. But yeah, I'm a huge OG guy. I wanted us to keep our picks in 2017 and take him with one of them. So yeah, definitely wanted that. Dayron Sharp, yeah. I mean, I don't know if. I mean, he's pretty raw still. Kind of like a poor man's Dwight Howard at the end of his career. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's probably someone that's realistic at least. Yeah, but I don't think this team would be willing to like move on from Eubanks for him or whatever. Khaled, still waiting on who you would trade to get Bojan. Because Detroit loves him too. Yeah. Genuine question: did the Powell Rocco trade need to be made to get Grant? Because just imagine Rocco and Powell off the bench instead of Winslow and Keon Eubanks Watford. So the answer to that is yes and no. It is no because that trade exception that we got Grant with, all the assets short of a second round pick, which we could have gotten in any kind of move, were all from the New Orleans trade. So that did not affect how we would be able to acquire Grant. But the no or the yes part of it is we wouldn't have been able to sign Gary Payton if we had Rocco and Rocco and Powell still on the team because we wouldn't have been able to stay under the hard cap, so we would have only had that tax mid-level exception instead of the higher one. So we still probably could have gotten Bruce Brown or Otto Porter Jr. or someone like that with that, but wouldn't have Gary Payton.
Any good names?
Wenyen Gabriel is
Actually,
it's like a realistic one. Like I don't know.
Wenyen would be cool as a backup big. Yeah, I don't know. This sucks. Did you have any breakdowns?
No, I wasn't able to get any.
That's fine. I didn't even feel like breaking it down. Honestly, it's almost going to feel like an all-star break with like one game on the 26th and no other games between now and the 30th.
Yeah, I know, David. I'm just saying, like, we wouldn't have been able to.
Reese, that's a great question, man.
GP2 and Nurk for Bojan and Nerlens Noel.
How
Man,
does that how does that help our defense at all? Also, yeah, I don't yeah, that no. No. No, 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 no. Also, why does Detroit do what? Oh, chat, be nice. Chat, be nice. Be nice. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but still, relax.
that just makes Eubanks have to play more.
Yeah.
He's probably our starter then over Nerlens. And you're playing Bojan and Grant as your forwards?
That's bad. Alex, what picks? Kenrick Williams is a great... Like, there's forward targets that make sense. Kenrick Williams would be awesome. Anthony Simmons with the OKC logo. Yes, and Kenrick Williams would be awesome for the Blazers. He said, any chance we can get Kenrick Williams from the Thunder, but he has a Thunder logo as his profile picture. I'm confused.
Yeah, like pretty much the only trades that make sense with Nurk are ones where you're getting an upgrade at center. And it, in my mind, if you're giving up Nurk, like if you could trade Nurk for Miles Turner, like I don't have a problem with the people who would want that to happen. I personally, I don't know. You're gonna have to pay Miles Turner more, and that wouldn't just be a straight across trade. So you're gonna have to find assets and add to it. So those kind of trades don't make sense to me. Obviously, if you could get like Embiid at some point, then sure, trade Nurkic. But like, in my mind, that's the only way that it makes sense trading Nurk is if you absolutely have to. Like, let's say we're getting Kevin Durant and we have to include him in salary, and we're just going to have to find a way to make some DeMarcus Cousins or LaMarcus Aldridge work off the bench to make that happen. But like, short of that, like, not a lot of moves make sense with Nurkic, both giving up assets and trading him for a similar quality center. The Pacers can't have Ayton this year. They have a 1-year trade restriction on him being traded to the Pacers. So.
Yep.
So for those that suggest trading Ant for OG, one, like I said, OG's never really been healthy. Two, how does that help our shot creation in lineups where we're having trouble creating shots right now? How does that help our shooting? How does that help our spacing? Like, you're basically just trading an offensive player for a. I mean, OG's good at offense. I'm not saying he's bad or anything, but it's not as simple as just saying, oh, he scores like 18, 19 points a game and scores 23. It's not that big of a drop off when a lot of Ants is self-creation versus within the flow of the offense.
Yeah, you don't want to get caught like rearranging problems because in the end you still have problems.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta try and solve the problems without creating a new one. So.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a way to trade pretty much anyone to guarantee we got Wemby, that wouldn't be terrible. But unfortunately, that's in the best case scenario where you got the number one pick or the number one odds right now before the deadline to have the number one pick. It's still only a 14% chance that you get that number one pick. So even if you traded for the first pick with the worst team in the league and they were guaranteed to finish worst, it still doesn't. They still have an 86% chance of not getting Wembanyama. So, yeah.
Yep. Anything else you want to talk about on the stream?
No, I just hope everyone has good holidays. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas, and hope to see all of you for both of our shows on Monday.
Yep, 2 shows Monday. Blazers Uprise Live, second channel, link in description box below. Post-game show after the Hornets game. We'll see if GP2 plays. If he plays, obviously we'll focus a lot on him. And then 3 days off, game on December 30th, and then a couple days off, then game on the 2nd, and that game on the 2nd is our in-person watch party. If you haven't bought tickets to that, you should definitely consider it, and you can come yell at us about how much you hate Anthony Simons or Yusuf Nurkic in person. We're going to do a live watch party and a live post-game show at a venue in Northeast Portland. So if you're interested, check out the link in the description box below for tickets. Anyway, other than that, I hope all of you have a good Christmas or happy holidays, whatever you celebrate.
And Little Scrappy says, why can't we bring in Dwight Howard? Like I just explained, we are right up against the tax line. Signing someone would put us in the tax, and we are not going to do that for a free agent that's out there right now because none of them are worth it for this organization to go in the tax for.
Yep. So we'll have trade content. There's a lot of trade content in January. Just kind of waiting, and with how limited things are, and still kind of a cloudy picture as to who's going to be selling what. That's why we're waiting on that. But, conversation's definitely ramping up for sure.
And if the broadcast shows the Dame celebration or something, I'm guessing we'll probably start a little later than normal on the...
Yeah, we will see.
stream. Yep.
We will see. Because there's a post-game celebration for him breaking the record. Hopefully that's a happy celebration because they get a win. So,
and just because it hasn't been announced, once again, I've been saying this forever, but still am going to put it out there that Gary Payton will play on Monday, and that's been the plan for a couple weeks now. I've been saying that on stream. I've been saying late December for a long time. I've specifically said December 26th for a couple weeks now. So just remember that if it does end up happening, you guys heard that right here on Blazers Uprise first.
Yeah. Give Eric his credit. Because he won't get it, unfortunately. But anyway.
Everyone knew that, Tori.
Yeah, everyone knew he was coming back exactly on the 26th. That's 2 weeks ago, yeah. So, no, you just guessed again. Dang it. Anyway. Hopefully you guys have a good rest of your night and a good Christmas or, happy holidays, whatever you guys celebrate. Stay safe in all the ice if you're in the Portland area. And honestly, it's icy elsewhere too. The whole nation is freezing right now. It sucks. Haven't been able to eat all day. Just kind of been stuck in the house, chilling, and didn't help my mood watching this game and capping off this day like that. I hate the ice, but should hopefully be better tomorrow. But anyway, regardless, we will catch you guys after this weekend. We'll catch you on Monday with 2 streams, as I said. And then watch party tickets down in the description box below for January 2nd if you're interested and if you want to meet up with us. That'd be cool to meet some of you guys. Emphasis on some of you guys. I'm just kidding. Anyway, we're out of here. Until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.